Welcome, everyone. I'm Diane with EdWeb, and it's my honor to introduce our presentation today with the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. I'm here with Kathy Metcalf, Executive Director of Education for the Society, and our honored guest Medal of Honor recipient, Staff Sergeant David Bellavia, who received the medal for his service in the U.S. Army in Iraq.
Okay, thank you, Diane, and thank you, David, for joining, Staff Sergeant Bellavia, for joining us today. We are looking at an audience mainly of teachers because we're focused on the Medal of Honor Character Development Program. And to that end, I would welcome all our viewers, including those of you who are not educators, but I just want to give you a heads up that we try to take educator questions first. And if we have student questions, those, of course, are our top priority. We ask your patience to bear with us today as we have a variety of common internet issues going with heavy usage and storms in various places. So we will do the best we can with the technology that we have. Staff Sergeant Bellavia, thank you so very much for being here today. The CDP is built around the character values that the Medal of Honor recipients decided are embedded in that Medal of Honor. So courage, commitment, sacrifice, integrity, citizenship, and patriotism. And you, of course, are a 1st Infantry Division veteran. And so the theme is duty first. Can you connect duty first with character values for us?
Duty commitment. We talk a lot about why that we do the things that we do. We feel compelled to do them at a time when people are watching. When we know that folks are there to see our actions, we feel validated by people seeing us in a good light. And it feels good to be respected. It feels good to be admired for doing, the right thing at the right time. The real test comes when no one's looking. And the real test comes with accountability and knowing that in order for us, whether it's an Army infantry company, a school, an organization, any group, you have to be an individual in a community. Use your gifts to the best of your ability, but you're constantly a part of the fabric. In the infantry, we don't get in trouble in a firefight unless someone is trying to do something more than what they're supposed to do. Just your job is the most important thing. That's why you're there. Do your job. Don't try to do anything outside of your job. And sometimes you get a really big piece of the pie because situations happen and it's your job, it's your part, but you're always doing it for the greater good. You're always doing it for the community. And your hope is that you are going to be the person that you hope that man and woman to the left and right are going to be at all times. And you hope that they're going to be accountable when no one's looking. And you hope that their sense of team, sense of commitment, believing in what's happening. It's not just the lip service of saying you're in charge and you have the authority. It's about actually believing that and realizing that we're never going to be good leaders until we learn how to be subordinates. We have to learn how to follow before we can really truly understand leadership. And that's based in a sense of obligation to the community, obligation to the team. And that means I have to be individually accountable for my actions, my behavior, the way I treat people. And ultimately, if we all live those lives, we're going to have a perfect organization.
Thank you. I jumped right in with an assumption that our viewers, because we have a lot of returning viewers, know about the Medal of Honor. And in your particular case, of course, because your medal was awarded so recently, your story is available to them on a variety of interviews, both with, I saw Fox News on YouTube. Your Pentagon speech was really stellar, and I appreciate that. But I'm not going to go into a lot of the details of your action unless you choose to bring them up in your responses. So I'll leave that up to you. But one of the first questions we have from a school district here is from Fort Worth ISD. And Fort Worth is asking, to what do you attribute your actions? Specifically, was it your training? Was it your personal set of values or something else? And I think that was referring specifically probably to your Medal of Honor action, but in
Right.
general.
Well, I believe, when I was serving with friends and I was losing those friends, I was really angry about that, and I really hurt to lose someone so young, the catastrophic way you lose people in combat. It's impossible not to be affected by it. And so for the longest time, I filled my heart with anger and hatred in the combat experience. And don't get me wrong, hate gets you from point A to point B, but it's like nitrous in your engine. You get that boost, but then you destroy your engine. Over time, if you're using nitrous all the time, the engine never works again. And I realized that I was getting through moments of bad times, but because I was doing it because I was angry and because I really hated what this enemy represented and what they were doing to innocent people, to my friends. And what changed for me was that I can't fight because I have anger and hate. I have to fight because I have love. And I love my friends, and I love my country, and I love our way of life. And fighting out of love makes you do things that you never thought possible. It is commitment, it is obligation, but it's really surrounding yourselves with people. Peer pressure is always talked about in the sense of negativity. You got in trouble because your peers got you in trouble, and you did stupid things because your peers. But peer pressure can really make you do good things too. If you're surrounded by quality people, honorable men and women, they're going to, by the pressure of the community, force you to do the right thing. It's difficult to screw up and be selfish when everyone around you is selfless and is pure heart. And I found that what gets you through any situation is when you focus on that love of the people you're around and the cause that you're a part of. And anything is possible if that's your compass.
One of our viewers had asked how we can best inspire students to be willing to make sacrifices on other people's behalf. And you just answered that beautifully with the focus on surrounding yourself with people of good qualities and values. In your Pentagon talk, you mentioned that the people that you were with on the battlefield, the ones that you're referring to, that you fought partly because you loved them. I love this sort of juxtaposition of contraries, that there you're in a situation of battle and literally a fight for your life. And you said these are people who decided that our rights, yours, mine, the people who are viewing today, our rights are more worthy than their tomorrows, and that their sacrifice gave you a clear focus to fight. That was so wonderfully inspiring, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Do you want to comment about I know you always make it a point to mention those you lost. Do you want to say anything about those
I
who
mean,
gave their lives?
there's Stephen Falkenberg and J.C. Madison, Sean Sims, Scott Lawson, Ed Iwan. That was just Fallujah. I mean, we ended up losing 37 that year, and then you would lose 15 to 20 over the years. This generation, a lot of negative things are said about this generation. Young people today, our survivability as a nation is dependent on how 8 and 10-year-olds grow up and the type of people they are when they grow up. And my generation, I saw the Space Shuttle Challenger in '86, and my generation was horrified by that. I mean, it shocked us to our core, and we had no connection outside of we were watching something live on TV that was horrifying. Mm-hmm. And these young people have gone through so much in real time that would take a normal young person and absolutely debilitate them emotionally. And their strength and their ability to compartmentalize what's happening in the real world and bad things that can happen, that generation can go one of two ways. And we're seeing a cross section of them join the military and do something. I joined, there was no threat from terrorism. It was in the late 90s. The military, the world was relatively safe. Kosovo was the big deployment. There were people that specifically joined the military because they knew they would be going off to war at a time of their age when most people don't make commitments to, long distance service plans, let alone to serve their country. I mean, it speaks a lot about these young people, and it's impossible. Combat changes us, and we can be victimized by the bad things that happen in our life. We can think about the bad things that happen to our life every single day and become a prisoner of it, or we can be empowered by it. We can take negativity and bad and say, you know what, this is making me stronger. I know what I can endure. I know how broad my shoulders are, and I'm ready to be of service. Any way I can be of service. In uniform, fantastic. In your community, in your school, constantly remembering that our job on this planet is to provide for other people and constantly be there for other people. And I'm proud that my generation was a part of that in combat.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that your generation, and probably the young generation now too, my kids and in turn your kids, are probably not getting quite as much credit as they deserve. You commented in your speech that and this was a number that I don't think I was aware of, and here I am working with veterans all the time, that 1.5 million men and women have served in Iraq. I think that's a much larger number than most people have in their heads.
I was actually, after I gave that speech, I was corrected that it was over 4 million. And I didn't believe that number, let alone 1.5 million. So I think what they're doing is they're counting how many times, if you went on one tour, that's one time. If you've gone on 4 or 5 tours, you've been to Iraq 5 times. They're counting, that's how many people had served at that time. It's confusing. But the point is, millions of Americans have shared the combat experience. But unlike World War II and Vietnam, we have this phenomenon that's the casualty notification team. And it's when the military is contacting a family member that their loved one has been lost in battle. And there was a time in American history when you saw a military vehicle or a state police car drive up the neighborhood, and every mother fell to their knees because they didn't know where that vehicle was going to stop. Everyone had skin in the game. Everyone had a loved one that was in Iwo Jima or in the European theater. Vietnam hit and entire neighborhoods were drafted. That's not the case today. Today, when that casualty notification team comes into a town, everyone knows it's the Smith family. The Smith family has a Marine, and we know they're coming for that household. And it's a really heavy burden to bear, especially when you look at most military people. Their parents were in the military. There's a heritage and a pedigree of service. And it seems to me that it shouldn't be shared by just one cross section of society. And especially today, with everyone so divided, the best way to fight ignorance is to put 2 people that have never experienced each other's culture and just put them in a barracks. You want to learn to get along? That's how you get along. We don't treat people with dignity and respect because it's good for our promotion, it's good for mission success, or it's even good for our community. We treat people with dignity and respect in the Army because it's the right thing to do. And we're obligated to do the right thing. It's grilled into your head that this is your family. This is your group. If you want to take time and look at people, point out their differences, there's no, you don't pick your family, you don't pick your platoon. You grow where you're planted. They stick you in a place. So the lessons that you learn in that environment are far more, to me, life-changing than college for me. I joined the Army after college. And though that learning experience of always being uncomfortable, always having a day of growth. Every single day, there's something you have to do better. And you're surrounded by people that don't worship like you, don't love like you, don't look like you, didn't have the same, background, socioeconomic, religion. And yet, when that flag's on our shoulder and we're running towards fire, no one's taking a step backwards. And if someone gets hurt, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to bring you back. And to me, it's in my life, it's the most beautiful experience I've ever had. It's the worst experience, but it's actually the most beautiful to see, grace and people that actually honor their word enough, we meet people in our real life as civilians. We sit around and we talk to folks. And, when you meet someone new, you're always building trust. You meet someone that you like and you want to go on a date. It's about trust. Are you someone that's worthy of my time? Are you honest? Are you decent? Do I want to spend more time with you on the playground, at this cafeteria, wherever it is? I'm always asking if you're worthy of my trust. In the military, the first thing you do is earn their trust. Then you get to know them. And you're like, that person, I don't exactly like their personality. I don't like who they voted for, but I know I can trust them. I know I can trust her. I've already seen what she's willing to do for me. I know I can trust that person. So those relationships are the exact opposite of how the relationships work in the real world, where you build you like someone and then you build the trust. In the Army, for me, the trust was there, and everything else is just a big cherry on the sundae.
Well, I suppose that the common priority and certainly the common threat pushes you right into that kind of a relationship once you get on the battlefield.
It does, and you start to see, people for who they are immediately. It boils everything down. In a way, people talk about the combat experience and serving at a time of war and the difficult nature of it. They look at law enforcement. You look at, first line people, fighting COVID, teachers. There are stories any person can tell you in their job that would horrify you. You don't know anything about their job. If a teacher told me about their normal day, I would, start a GoFundMe, because I would think, oh, that's so much stress, that's so much pressure, it's so much responsibility. And then you think, well, I just don't know enough about it. I haven't been, in that circumstance. I haven't walked that walk. And people do that with combat. You think, well, you're being shot at, someone's trying to hurt you. That's got to be so scary. But you realize that when you're a leader, you're always watched. Everyone is watching you. We do a lot of running in the military. And if someone decides that they're too tired, they want to fall out of the run, everyone's watching the reaction of the person who quit. And if they get off with no problem, you're going to get 2 or 3 other people that are like, I'm tired too. I don't want to run another 3 miles. I'm exhausted. I've got weight on my back. I've got boots on. I'd like to quit and maybe, catch 45 seconds of rest. But if you hammer that first person and say, no, this is unacceptable. You're stopping, everyone's stopping. We're going to make an example of you. Everyone else seems to say, I can do more too. I can do more too. I'm not just quitting myself. I'm quitting on everyone else. And it's always being watched. If you give a subordinate the opportunity to see you in a manner that isn't worthy of respect or dignity, then they can do it too. And so it is a burden that people in positions of influence have to deal with all the time. You're always going to be looked at. You're always going to be watched. And we have to literally be the person we say we are every single day. We have to ask the question, who are we? Why are we here? What is our purpose? And it keeps you accountable.
And a great example of that positive peer pressure that you were talking about earlier. Someone from our Albuquerque Public Schools asked if you would talk about commitment, not just to your unit, but what commitment means to you in everyday life.
Yeah, one of the things that helped me become a squad leader, so I was in charge of 9 to 11 infantrymen. And you throughout the Army, you play the role of the very individual that you're eventually going to be in charge of. So everyone starts off as a student, everyone starts off as a private, you work your way up. And one of the things that I realized quickly is that being a father in my life, I had a young son, and that relationship, it almost is like you're a surrogate father to these 11 soldiers. You're responsible for their well-being. You're responsible for every aspect of them. I get really frustrated now that I have the award. I go around and meet all these leaders in the military and civilian life, and I always ask them about their people. Like, tell me about your people. What do you know about them? Well, he's from Tucson. He's from Virginia. Tell me about them. What is it that makes them tick? What is their limit? How much can they take? Are they good at what they do? What are they really good at? What are they really bad at? What's going on in their personal life? Are they happy? Is there something that we could, what is their role here? Do they understand their role? How are we validating the people that we're in charge of? Because if someone is validated every single day, there's a sense of purpose. You're going to find that all of the problems that we have in our society, self-esteem, sense of worth, having a purpose on this planet, who validates us and why are we validated by those people? All of those insecurities and all those issues that, we see a lot of post-traumatic stress, a lot of depression, people just it all stems from how they see themselves and how they're treated in their work environment, how they're treated at school. And one of the things that, we've talked a lot about bullying in public schools. It's been a huge part of a national campaign. And I encourage as many veterans as I can, of any job they could go into, they must go into education. We need more veterans in education now more than ever, because we're subject matter experts in bullying. We've been, fighting bullies since 1775, quite frankly. That's all we do. And
Right.
There's a communal protection when it comes to someone who's trying to hurt or someone who's trying to intimidate. And it doesn't become about one-on-one confrontation. It again comes around isolating that behavior and saying, it's not acceptable. It's not tolerated. You're not just going to have to deal with the kid you're bullying. You don't have to deal with the principal or the teacher. You have to deal with the entire class saying, that's unacceptable. That behavior is unacceptable. He's one of us. She's one of us. We're pushing back against that. I try to talk to young people about the importance of confrontation and how it very rarely ever leads to violence. True confrontation is so healthy and it's so important. Young people today are often looked at as being the most narcissistic, generation ever to live in America. And it really doesn't talk about their narcissism as much as it talks about other generations' ability to be walked all over. I mean, how many things do I do for my kids that, quite frankly, my parents never would have dreamed of doing for me? I got to play one sport. I picked my sport. That was it. You want to play an instrument or play a sport? We're only paying for one. Those are the rules. I have children now. I'm like, let's, teach them hang gliding. Let's give them languages. Let's let them have piano. Whatever I can do for you, I'll do. Well, these kids are saying, this is who I am. This is what I want. And I'm going to achieve that. And that's healthy to put yourself forward. But also part of that is the ability to say, I don't feel comfortable in this environment. I don't feel like I want to do something. I don't like this pressure. I want to talk about what I'm uncomfortable about. I want to talk about what is upsetting to me and have a dialogue where you can communicate yourself, articulate what's wrong, and be around peers that say, I disagree. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. There's nothing wrong with, difference isn't something we should avoid. Difference is something we should celebrate. The
Absolutely.
best part of our life are things that are different. And it's given me a great opportunity to talk to young people and just explain that if you're different, that's fantastic. You wouldn't want to eat chicken McNuggets every single day. You want to have a variety of ideas, of tastes, of cultures, of music. You can't say you hate a type of music that you never heard of before. I do a radio show, and I took people over 70 years of age and I asked them, what do you feel about rap music? And older people were like, I hate it. It's not real. It's garbage. I played a game with them, and I took 5 lines from Shakespeare and 5 lines from Jay-Z. And I said, you tell me the difference. What's Shakespeare and what's rap? And not a single person got one answer right.
Wow.
Not one single person could differentiate between rap music and Shakespeare. It's because you'd never heard it before. And just because something's different doesn't mean it's threatening, and it doesn't mean it's bad. And it's good to share and confront and have a discussion. To me, that is what evolves us.
Oh, absolutely. I taught at the university level for several decades before I had the privilege of taking this job. And I live actually near Camp Pendleton, California. And so it wasn't unusual to occasionally have Marines in my classes. And then as we moved on through the war on terror, I started getting veterans in my classes. And at first, I noticed that veterans were very reclusive in the class for the obvious difference between the 18-year-old who was still thinking about the prom from 3 months before to someone who has now been oftentimes deployed and through battle. And I made it a point to try always to acknowledge that person, recognize that person in class, and get that person to engage with the class. And it was very interesting because there was an expectation oftentimes on the part of the veteran to be ostracized by a lot of these younger students, and an odd sense of combination of awe and fear almost of the veterans. But when I forced them to talk about it, the difference in their ability to get along and to listen to each other's experiences was tremendous, and I think it was good for everybody.
Yeah,
So
there's a tendency, I think, for people to, especially when it comes to a combat veteran, there's a tendency to think, and a lot of that is on the veteran ourselves. I found when I came home from war, I didn't know, am I supposed to wear this on my sleeve? Do I have to do I keep the haircut? Do I low crawl to the copy machine? Like, am I supposed to perpetually remind people that I'm a veteran, or do we just not speak of it? World War II veterans treat it differently than Vietnam.
right.
Afghanistan, Iraq veterans are different than everyone else. Everyone's going to find their comfort zone, but yeah, no, it's. I think we all are better to have veterans in our community, in our schools. I think we're the best neighbors, and I think the more people to experience war are probably people that will avoid going to war. And
Yeah.
sometimes we need that reminder of we should be slow to war, and just ask these guys because they all did it, and ask them, about war. I think it's a good thing to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. My dad was a World War II vet, and one of the things that he said, he talked about it very little in early years, certainly as I was growing up. But then later he said, part of it is I don't ever want my kids and my grandkids to have to go to war. And
Right.
he, lived long enough to see the generation of his grandkids go to war, and it was disappointing for him. But he, tried a long time to help kids avoid that. So um, definitely good to share the experience so that people will understand it better and respect it more, I think. Um, One of the schools, Ranchero Middle School, asks, do you have advice for students about persevering through trying times or unexpected change? Which I think kind of goes with what you were just saying on our tendency to want to make everything easy for our kids. But you have direct advice for the kids themselves?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's something. One of the things I try to do, people ask me, like, growing up, what's the best thing you can do for a young person? And, who has the answer to that? You'd have a book series if you were a master but the
Right.
real answer is it's controlled failure. It really is. You've got to fail. You've got to screw up. And there's nothing wrong with screwing up. It really, there's actually more benefit to learning. You got on a bicycle and your biggest fear was, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to scrape my knee. I don't want to lose my teeth. I'm constantly avoiding getting hurt. And then you realize that it's how quickly and consistently you pedal, and everything else takes care of itself. The steering, the balance, it's the perpetual motion on a bicycle that makes it stable. And that really is the most important lesson in our life, is that no matter what hits us, if you're thinking negativity, you're embarrassed, you got your heart broken, you had an incident that happened that caused you shame or humiliation, everything you want in life is on the other side of conflict. Everything, every good thing that's ever going to happen to you is going to be on the other side of something that's kind of miserable. And it's the ability to get through the bad to really be able to say, look what I'm capable of doing. I'm much tougher than I was, right? The first day of school, you miss your mom. The first day of college, you miss your parents, you miss your boyfriend, girlfriend. You go to the army, you miss home. And then what happens after 3 or 4 days, right? You grow past the awkwardness. If there's one lesson you can learn, be uncomfortable every single day. Do something that makes you uncomfortable. Eat a food you've never tried before. Watch a television show you never watch. Read something you don't like and just experience it, go through it, and realize nothing can stop me. Nothing that's in front of me is something I can't handle. And that's when you know you've succeeded.
And I love the bicycle analogy, because when you're on a bicycle, if you don't have forward motion, you're going to fall over.
That's right.
You know,
Always.
you just, in spite of those professional bicyclists that can balance at a stop sign, but most
Right.
of us,
The
if we're not
unicycle
moving
guy.
forward,
Yeah,
if we're not moving forward, we fall over. We have a question from an Air Force ROTC group that asked whether ethics, values, or morals helped you on the battlefield while engaging the enemy. I suspect that you didn't have time to think about it at that point, but I'll let you address that question.
Well, ethics, values, and morals. If you're checking those boxes before you're actually doing something of purpose, you're way past the game. The ethics, the morals, the values. The building block of competency is character. No one is ever going to care what you know. You can be the best at what you do, right? You're a mechanic, you're a computer programmer. You're the best at what you do. What is the point in being the best you are capable of being if other people are becoming better around you? I mean, a lot of leaders like to be judged by what they accomplish, but really the true testament to leadership is what subordinates accomplish, what your people can do. And that means you have to assure your organization, your commitment, your team, your family, that you're going to be better than me. And it's tough. It's tough to see people you brought up and you're educating and you're nurturing eclipse you. It's tough on your ego. It's tough on yourself, your sense of worth. But when you really boil it down, it's the ultimate compliment of who you are and what you've done, is that you've actually made your place better for you having been there. You left your uniform in a better place than when you got your uniform. It's the reason why America is what it is because every generation was better than the previous generation. And those values and those ethics all build into that character. And if you're not someone that someone's going to go to with a problem, you can't fix a problem. If you're not someone that someone can go to and in need of help, you can't help anyone. You have to be that person, and you have to live all of those things. So before you find yourself doing something above and beyond what you think you're capable of doing, that checklist is done when you enlist. If you're in the junior ROTC program or the ROTC program or wherever you are, you're well on the way of understanding what your purpose is across the greater good and what real leadership is. It's not easy, and it's not supposed to be easy, because right. If it was easy, everyone would do it, and very few can.
Thank you for that. The to take another aspect of this, so there we've got the comments about values and character. So our students who are listening, put that in your pocket and think about that in terms of leadership. But somebody else also asked, what part did training play in your successes in battlefield? So let's take a look at that aspect of life in general.
All training is getting you comfortable enough to make decisions in really bad spots. You've got your brain is constantly reminding you. Your brain's just like a parent around a 2-year-old. Like, just keep the 2-year-old alive. Keep the 2-year-old away from danger. Whatever the 2-year-old does, it has to be safe. That's what your brain is doing to your body all the time. And it's like a really worried mom, your brain sometimes, and your brain panics and is like, oh, no, no, no. Your body is well versed in anything you could possibly put your body through. If you stop listening to the brain, the body is an incredible vessel and can endure a tremendous amount. And then you throw the heart in there and that desire, the purpose of why you're doing it. It's enough noise to drown out any sort of self-doubt. What training does is it destroys all the self-doubt. Your muscle memory, you're doing something over and over and over again. And so now you can maybe focus on something totally different. Now you have enough confidence to say, no matter what happens, you do a fire drill the first time, you're looking around the building. I got to take a left here. This door is a push door. Okay, that's great. You do 15 fire drills. Now you're worried about what happens when you're outside. Where's the fire truck going to show up? Well, we should all move this area, right? How do I make the fire drill faster? How can I do it better? Repetition and training allows you to make decisions in a difficult environment. So you want to get that muscle memory down. The hardest thing to train for combat is noise. It's one thing to have a target, to take a target down, to know how to use your equipment, to know how to, maneuver when gunfire is coming your way. It's another thing to realize what it sounds like to have someone shoot a rifle next to your ear. It changes everything. So sometimes you can learn a lot by going bang, bang. And other times you need to actually fire weapons so that you can hear it and you don't panic over it. I would always laugh at when you're at a range, you shoot a bullet and a shell casing comes out. And if you're shooting a lot of ammunition, that shell casing will be super hot. Mm-hmm. And you've got guys that are literally being hit with bricks and debris and grazed by machine gun fire. And they're just doing their job, everything you can ask them to do, no fear, no pain, no register of anything. But one little shell casing that gets hot lands on like their neck or their arm, and they're, that hurts, that burns. It's because you're not expecting it. You're not expecting a shell casing to burn you. And so you react to that totally. It's like, you hurt your thumb, but then you stub your toe. Which one are you hurt over? Which one are you bemoaning, right? Your brain makes that decision, and training allows your brain to realize the body's in control. The heart is pushing everything. Just focus on anything that we're not expecting. But we have this down, and we have it drilled into our head that this is what we're going to do.
And I think our students can put that to use in everything that they do, whether they are indeed learning to ride a bike, taking music lessons, playing a sport, doing math, quite frankly, that you can get through a math problem if you don't have to stop and figure out what 6 times 7 is, but you have the times tables memerized. So
I never understood the logic of memorizing the times table when I was 9 years old. And now I'm ready. I mean, I have things that I learned when I was 8 years old that I go to every single day and it's crazy. How do you remember something that you learned? A teacher, a lesson plan, the way they describe something, that becomes a part of your foundation. And once you have that as basic knowledge, you now can expand. You're not just learning Spanish, you're learning Chinese now. You are able to do more because you've mastered something. It's something to be said about repetition and about comfort. Make things fun. If you had to do yard work, you'd try to come up with a way to make it fun, make your pile bigger than the other pile of leaves, or, some sort of game that you're playing. The floor is lava, whatever it is, you make
Yes.
things fun all the time in life. Education's part of that. It's not competition being better, having a higher grade. It's about actually making what you're doing fun, your job fun, your whatever organization you're in. Entertain yourself by enjoying your own progress. It's fun to be good. It's really fun to be good at things. It stinks to fail. It really does. And you get good at things by doing them more often.
Oh, absolutely. And getting that training to the point where it becomes automatic makes it possible to have fun with it. I worked so long with teachers and potential teachers who wrestled with the question of reading skills. And I said, for most kids, the reading skill is most important, because once you get to the point where you are a fluent reader and you don't have to think about how to figure out the words, then that process, like we were saying with math, you can look at a word and you read it before you even think about reading it. And it really does help with all those other things. And as you said, success then becomes fun because you can do it.
Right.
Kids who don't like to read are usually kids who struggle to read. And I think that's true with so many things that we do. We have a couple more questions coming in right now directly off the internet. One is, this is kind of interesting. It says, what would you say to encourage young leaders to rise above themselves to help promote the good of the team?
It's I think rising above yourself is it's an interesting way to look at it, right? Because it automatically assumes that you know what your limitations are. It automatically assumes to know that whenever a group is tested or there's a stressful situation, it's always interesting when you look at let's say someone dropped a water balloon and it splattered in front of you. If one person gets up and runs away, inevitably the reaction of that first person dictates a lot of other people's reactions. They don't know what just happened. They don't know it's a water balloon. Whatever the situation occurred, it's the first person's reaction. Inevitably, people want to follow that. And when you realize that you're now influencing other people's behavior, their discipline, you now realize that you have ownership in the team. And so I always found that when I was struggling because I had a bad leader, I had a bad teacher, I had a bad job, a bad boss, bad friends, 90% of the time it was bad because I wasn't receptive to the environment that I was in. I was making it worse than it actually was because I was just focusing on how frustrated I was. And when I realized that I have ownership, this is my brand, I'm a part of this, and I have to make sure it's successful because, quite frankly, everything is going to change when everyone's successful. It's amazing how many attitudes change when things are actually going well, when you're doing well. The team gets along when you win games. The classroom gets along when everyone passes the test, right? It's always better to be collectively successful. It's about taking ownership yourself and buying all in to what the organization, what the team, what everyone else is doing. And now you're letting yourself down because you are a part of the team. You bought in and you're a part of it.
So I'm hearing both looking inward and taking responsibility, but also looking outward beyond yourself instead of just thinking about what you can do, but thinking about what's best for everybody involved.
Yes, ma'am.
Another question that just came in, and this one I think goes back probably to the duty first idea. What of all the Army values would you say means the most to you? Which you probably addressed already, but we'll try it anyway.
Honestly, the one, integrity is huge. That's huge. Honor, what honor means to different cultures and societies. are different. Eastern honor is different than Western civilization honor. So it's almost impossible to use generic words, and it doesn't mean the same for everyone. But the one thing that everyone respects is courage, personal courage. And I was always amazed at how people that didn't speak Arabic could automatically influence someone that isn't your religion, isn't from the same area of the world, and we don't even speak the same language, and yet you're able to follow someone instinctively. And that's because the one thing that transcends all cultures is personal courage. Standing up, making the statement nobody wants to make, having the courage to not have to be nasty, to not have to be cruel, to actually say, this is how I feel, and I don't need to be disrespectful to you because, quite frankly, I'm confident in my position. I don't have to be adversarial to you because I'm confident in what I'm saying. That is a part of courage. And having people that are fearless in a group is really the first step to building that trust, to say, look, I'm a reliable person. And when things get awkward and things get tough, not only am I going to be here, I'm going to be a part of the solution. We're going to come up with ways to do this together. That I think is the most important value.
I think that's what historian Barbara Techman referred to as moral courage, and what I always told students I was looking for in them was the courage of their convictions, their willingness to stand behind what they said they believed in. And that's a tough one for students to, I think, reach out for when they are so often encouraged to get the right answer, as opposed to the right answer in the sense of the expected answer rather than the answer that is right for them. And I appreciate that emphasis on courage, both physical and moral.
Like Gary Biker just joined and said he defines courage as love in action. And that's why Gary Biker wins the internet.
Yes.
Again, all of that wisdom from guys like Gary and the Vietnam generation, and that's the thing that we need in our lives is having an older generation telling you, yeah, Gary Luttrell, Gary Biker, all those Vietnam guys, being a recipient from a different generation of war, it is so amazingly beautiful to have someone else tell you, we've been through this before. This is exactly what you're going to go through. Don't worry about it. We love you. We support you. We're going to protect you. And this is the way we did it. Do it your own way, but this is the way we did it. Having a mentor is such a huge part of growing in a healthy world, is having someone you can look up to. LeBron James is an incredible athlete, and he might be a wonderful man, but you don't have a personal relationship with LeBron James. He represents something in our hearts and in our heads. But for me, a guy like Gary Biker and some of these other Vietnam guys, they're that real life mentor where you can just ask them questions and follow their leadership and look at their life decisions. That helps us a lot grow especially when we're in trouble. You got to look to someone for help.
Absolutely. Yeah, I understand that. Absolutely. Having been actually raised by a Medal of Honor recipient, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
And it sets a standard, for it sets a really beautiful standard and creates something that is, I had to learn that is not normal for everybody. And in teaching, I had to extend grace to people who did not have that same foundation in their lives. And you all, as Medal of Honor recipients, provide such a beautiful example for us, which is why the character development program works, because of the sacrifice and the commitment and the integrity that you've emphasized and that you've demonstrated in your lives. You talk in your Pentagon talk about the Medal of Honor being a validation of all your efforts, not just a reward for the actions of one individual. And one of our school districts asked if you would tell students what service to country means to you. And I think those two things kind of go together.
I just, sometimes you appreciate home more when you travel, and I spent a long time in my youth in high school. I was from a real rural area, Western New York, not too far from Gary Biker, in same area, Western New York. And so I just wanted to get out. I just wanted to see what the world was like. And the more you take yourself out of where you're from, you start to really appreciate where you're from. There might be problems, there might be issues, but nothing is home. And there's elements of it that you can realize once you look back, it's really special. I don't know that there's a country in the world that has the compassion that the United States has had over history. We've made some horrible mistakes. One of the things that's important to point out, though, is that America is honest about our mistakes.
Yes.
There are parts of the world that have done some really horrific things. And if you go to middle school in other countries, you might not learn anything about what happened from 1938 to 1945. There's just a black hole in their history book. And it's because it's awkward to acknowledge that something you love so much, like your country, could be involved in something so absolutely horrific. We've never had that problem in the United States because we're allowing people to freely express. We openly discuss the horrible things that America has done. But the other thing that we've done that no other country has done is we rebuilt Germany. We rebuilt Japan. We go to war and we rebuild our enemies. No one in the history of modern man has ever done that. When there's a hurricane or an earthquake, it's automatically expected that the United States is going to be there to help people. And Mr. Rogers talked about his mother told him when he was young, if you're ever scared, always look for the helpers. The helpers are always going to be there. So if you're scared, you look for helpers. The United States of America, since our inception, have always been the helpers. And that's an amazing legacy to be a part of. Is it perfect? Nothing's perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. But it's the acknowledgement that we strive for perfection. We strive to always be on the side of good. And when we fail, we correct ourselves and get back on the journey to greatness. And that's something really special.
It really is. And we are so privileged to live here and to have grown up with that. You said also in your Pentagon speech that open dissent is at the core of our being. And of course, in times difficult that we've had recently, without going near politics, I love that you said there is no political affiliation on our dog tags. And to return where we started with this conversation and the question of your team and how you work together, are there any closing comments? Because unfortunately, we only have about 5 minutes left. Anything else that you really want to address for our students and our teachers as they navigate these kind of crazy times we're living in?
I just think that there's a mindset today with young people that we want to be perpetually adolescent. And if we just stay young for as long as possible, that life's going to be fun. And even as we grow into adults, when things become popular, when we go to things that are retro and start to reminisce, it's usually a sign that society is sick. We don't want to talk about the now or the future. Let's talk about 1975. And there's a romance to that. And I think one of the issues is that, adolescence is a beautiful time. It should be a beautiful time in our lives, but it ends. And then when you grow up and you become an adult, you're willing to carry a burden for everyone. And there's a tendency to want to make that adolescence perpetual adolescence. And the military, for me, really, really broke that apart and said, who cares what your peers are doing in a college or at a job? You're here for much more. We're asking you for much more. And to be able to do that with so many different Americans, I look at a Democrat and a Republican, Yankees, Red Sox. You don't like the teams, but I think we can eat. I think we can have a conversation together. You root for Tom Brady. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. There's no real reason to have that animosity. And by the way, we want to be healthy. We want to be better. There's no advantage to anyone to constantly remind people why we're different. There's really no advantage to anyone. It's, you do things different than me. It might be better. It might be lesser. But the point is, it's different. I accept it. I embrace it. And what amazing things we can do as a country, as a community, when we're on the same page. I mean, it's a really special thing. When America's unified, we are absolutely unstoppable.
And celebrating those differences. Every time we order food out and we talk about things like Mexican pizza and Italian burritos, we're thinking, well, wow, what a great place to live.
God bless you.
Well, and thank you so much for this. Now, looking forward, before I let you jump out on this last minute, the Medal of Honor is still fairly new to you. What do you see looking forward? And I know everybody wants to spend another hour hearing about the ceremony and all that, but we're out of time. How's the medal influencing what you're doing now?
I get a chance to talk to people like you and folks and share. I feel such a tremendous gratitude to the Vietnam veteran and that generation that they endured things that would be unimaginable if you treated people the way that they were treated. And yet, they are the first ones to really protect us when people want to judge us or attack us. It's the Vietnam generation that stands up and says, don't ever think about doing that to these kids like you did to us. And as time goes on, I don't want to lose that legacy. It's got to be continued. And all of the things that we have today are because of that generation of American. And so we are ready now to continue that message and to constantly remind people that America is worthy of any sacrifice. And we have so many beautiful gifts every single day. And if you want to be a part of this experiment and serve it, risk your life for it, whether it be in a soup kitchen, hospital, or the military, I don't see how anyone can do anything other than to thank God that we still have young people in this country that want to serve. It's a beautiful thing that we don't have to force anyone to do this. They do it voluntarily. And so this medal reminds me that we don't have Audie Murphy anymore. And we have Gary Bykirk and Gary Luttrell and Joe Marm and Woody Williams, who's 97, who's out there from Iwo Jima, and Hershey Miyamura, all these amazing American legends that young people need to realize they are no different than you are. They could do everything they did, you are capable of doing, and it's because they love their brothers and sisters, they love their peers, they love their communities, they listen to their teachers and their adults, and they decided that they are ready when needed. And they answered the call because they were needed. And it's an incredible message of what these men have done, why they did it, and the narrative is uniform. They all did it because it was their turn. And it's a really interesting, unique fraternity to be a part of, but it's super humbling because, some of these men are absolute legends. It's like hanging out with, a comic like Spider-Man and you're having coffee with them. And it's, these guys are living American legends and you can't even get your sideburns even. And these guys are walking around, like monuments. It's really humbling to be a part of that.
Well, and Staff Sergeant, you're one of them. Thank you for your time. Let's do it again. We'll have more to talk about. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, David, for your service, for sharing your thoughts with us here today, and for all this great advice you gave for our young people. That was amazing. And thank you, Kathy, and the Congressional Medal of Honor Society for helping to make this possible. And thanks to all of you who joined us, especially you teachers. You're going above and beyond to educate the next generation during a really challenging time. We appreciate all of you. And please visit the Medal of Honor Society's new website at cmohs.org. You can access lesson plans there, learn about other recipients, and more. And thank you all again. We will see you next time.